what is the US policy or the current policy, if we may qualify it, for South Asia. If I reverse in time zone a bit and go back to the beginning of millennia, a very important event by the name of 9/11 happened. And what did it bring for the globe? That there was by and large a consensus that terrorism was the buzzword, violence was the buzzword related to the Islamic faith particularly, and people were confused that are they confronting extremism, radicalism, or the religion of Islam itself. There were different response mechanisms, and as a product of this thought process, the initial intervention was in Afghanistan, followed by Iraq. So there were quite a war theaters around the globe. And when the Western Hemisphere, led by the United States, were taking on all of these fronts, a silent dragon was emerging economically. As Khurram mentioned, that more or less it was the same time when they joined WTO and they started playing by the international commercial rules, and in return they got access to Western markets and technology both. So there's a very interesting read, if I would suggest if anyone could have access to that, by the name of Long Game. Please do read that. That how the Chinese wisdom or the Chinese prudence gained in these 2 decades, post-2000. And why more or less by the end of these 2 decades, when there was a dysfunctional Iraqi state, Yemen was broken, Syria was almost non-existent in terms of a Westphalian state, Afghanistan was ungovernable. People on the side of the US started thinking about it, that what did we gain out of all this? So we created these war theaters, we focused on producing drones and so on and so forth. And the real challenge, which was the emergence of this Chinese dragon, was creating its infrastructure, its airports, focusing on its maritime trade, connecting to the global supply chain, and more probably from the 9th largest economy of the world, it turned to be the 2nd largest economy. So they started disengaging, or I think so, they started advocating about disengaging. So that's why I always tell people they did not lose the war in Afghanistan, they lost the interest. So we should not, or the people should not be boasting about it, that, oh, the empires were buried over there. No empire has been buried in Afghanistan. Sorry for I'm a Pashtun myself, but the chauvinistic tendencies need a reality check. When the 2 decades along with $2 trillion were squandered, this disengagement, not just from South Asia, but I perceive it is even a disengagement from multilateralism on a global scale. Particularly if you look at the 2-0 Trump administration's arrangement, the security guarantee provided during the post-Second World War to the European continent is no more there. There is a huge uncertainty, particularly in Northern and Western Europe. The expansion of NATO's eastward, the whole idea to contain and confront the sick Russian Federation is facing a very serious challenge. The post-Ukraine conflict has established that. What would happen to GCC? Would that be the same sort of a security guarantee where the entire globe is benefiting from that, but the security costs are mostly being paid by the US, that's what at least their claim is. And who's benefiting from it? China, India, the rest of the region. So a more transactional approach is emerging of America towards its traditional friends and foes alike. South Asia, yes, they chose India to be their strategic partner. But in my humble opinion, and this is my personal assessment, I can be wrong on that. What is the case of India over here? India, as rightly mentioned by Khurram, during the Cold War, was the traditional so-called non-aligned movement. They aligned themselves with that alliance along with 40 or 45 countries, which was pro-Soviet, but prima facie they maintained that they are neutral in this Cold War. And they were more inclined towards Soviets. When the Soviet challenge was at its peak, and the Iron Curtain, according to Prime Minister Churchill, was not being unveiled, and there were no one on this side who could clearly peek what is going on the eastern side. One of the biggest stratagem which West under the leadership of US did, that they brought a rapprochement to China, to Maoist China. So the Leninist Soviets were isolated by the Maoist China, and that rapprochement paid quite well in countering and containing the Soviet bloc. And by the end of Soviet Union, the conservative thinkers and the right-wing thinkers, I would call them mostly, like Lady Thatcher and Kissinger, they started drum beating about the triumph of democracy. They said, oh, it's a triumph of democracy, the socialist bloc as a governance structure has lost, capitalism is on the rise, it's democracy and capitalism are intertwined with one another, and eventually we will settle the global rules, the global governance structure, the ethos of political systems around the world. So democracy was the buzzword, capitalism, privatization, globalization, it all came. And with this, they started viewing China as a new threat. That rapprochement with the Chinese, which paid off in containing Soviets, they started arguing that let's engage with India to contain China. So that was the whole idea. And what was the Indian design? The Indian, this political flirtation with the Western Hemisphere, where they offered themselves to the poodle, to play the role of the poodle for the Western designs, they do pose themselves that they are quite ready to play a role in Indo-Pacific, containing China, but in reality they are unable to get over with their Pakistan obsession. And this is where I feel the divorce between India and Western Hemisphere is going to happen, when I cannot predict. But with every crisis, India establishes, for instance, look at the Ukraine. When it was a life and death situation for the European continent, India did not side with the Europeans. It did not. So it kept itself in the name of strategic autonomy and went for its own strategic design. Whatever they were right or wrong, but it did not align itself with the European continent. It was a big lesson to the whole of the Europe that this is a fallacy, this is an illusion if you start thinking that India would be your strategic ally no matter what. They'll live by you and they'll die by you. There's no such commitment. Yes, it would be transactional. Where it suits them, they would come closer, and where it does not suit them, they will divorce one another. So is the case with the US. So is the case with the US. Look at the current crisis. I mean, when there was a standoff between India and China, there was no warmongering in the Indian society, in the Indian media. And they did not push them that it is against the Indian pride. How on God's earth is it possible that the Chinese come, they do incursions, they take over a piece of land and they establish their posts over there? And it was clearly a demonstration of Chinese military superiority and Indian defeat. They digested that pain with their inflated political egos. But when it comes to Pakistan, they start drumbeating the warmongering, they want to even go for the nuclear brinkmanship, and the most irresponsible and surreal behavior, if you can observe, would be India versus Pakistan. So it concludes that India is Pakistan obsessed. It will never be able to play any role whatsoever for the Western Hemisphere to play its role to contain its strategic designs, whatever they are. So for South Asia, I view the President Trump's statement that I've got good relations with both the countries, India and Pakistan, in the same context. I think so the Westerners are realizing, and probably they would realize it more, that there is a cost if they choose to remain on the side of India vis-a-vis Pakistan, or they choose to be on our side vis-a-vis India. So more or less they would adopt a middle path, a middle course, where they are not viewed as a party. And at the same time, in the back channel, in the back door, they probably would be influencing both to avoid war. Because if, God forbids, it's not that we are frightened of war. We are not desirous of war, but we will never shy away from it. Let me assure you this. Pakistan, I have served in its highest office. I have never seen the deep desire for war with India. But I have never observed any doubt at any level, be it political, military, diplomatic, anywhere, in our business community, amongst our students, from Khyber to Karachi and from Bolan to Ravi. When it comes to cricket in India, we won. They will experience and they will see the resolve that we are prepared for war. We don't want war, but we are a prepared nation. In terms of our defense forces, in terms of a national sentiment, if someone is calculating that there is a political polarization in this country and that polarization would translate in the poor defense, oh my God, I wish and I hope some sanity is prevailed on the other side of the border. It's a dire miscalculation. Dire miscalculation. And coming from Balochistan, many people would be thinking that there is a huge disenchantment and how the people from Balochistan will support such a national sentiment. Forget about me what I say. You will see it. You will experience it. You will observe it. And marginal people, there are everywhere. People were against the Vietnam War in US. There are hundreds of thousands of people who are against this India-Pakistan conflict in India. 90% of the South Indians, my observations are, not interested at all to have any sort of a conflict with Pakistan. The Nagas, the Assamese, all the Seven Sisters where the separatism is going, no one is, it's not even a question of priority for them to have a conflict with India, with Pakistan. It is the only Hindi-speaking North with a revisionist and distorted historical view. Am I taking more time? Okay. Or shall we keep it for Q&A? Yeah, okay. So I will conclude my remarks on this, that I see less engagement of the US in South Asia, because the prime target or the prime challenge is this new tariff or trade war with China. It has its own implications. It has already started hitting US economy in terms of inflation. People are predicting recession. So a US which is facing high inflation and the talk of recession, how much would it involve itself in a distant military conflict where primarily it does not serve any of its economic objective? That remains to be seen. Would it play the role of the global leader, or on the kind of a behavior, eccentric behavior we are seeing in the Ukraine conflict, casts even further doubts that what sort of a behavior would be there. We are living in an era of uncertainty, which is quite dangerous, which is quite uncomfortable. With these thoughts, I rest my case, and I anticipate a less involvement. Would it be good for Pakistan or good for India? That needs to be seen. Thank you so much.